So once upon a time, if you wanted to build a front end for your web application, it would look a lot like this. This was the modern state of the art, and it was a simple time in a simple place. So we used to build websites like this. We'd have a backend that maybe served some static files, and if we were really fancy, we would render some stuff on the back end, maybe using PHP. And the web browser was just a web browser. It just displayed your stuff. And it was simple, it was easy to get into. Things have changed a lot, and they've changed because of needs. They've changed because of the needs of our end users, our clients, the people who use our stuff. So one of the needs we had was for the front end to be able to fetch data from the back end without needing to reload the whole page, and we needed to re-render parts of the screen, so Ajax and jQuery became a thing, but our code became kind of spaghetti-like. That was not something that scaled to the levels of complexity that we needed. So things like Angular became a thing. Single-page applications became very, very popular. But we needed to scale things in different ways. We needed reusable components. React became very popular because of that. We needed more efficient ways to render different parts of the DOM without doing it immediately, like render it in RAM and then render it on the screen. So the virtual DOM became a thing. Meanwhile, JavaScript was trying to keep up. And it was tough because you can't upgrade JavaScript in a way that breaks the internet. And so we needed tools to transpile it back into old school JavaScript so that browsers could still run the stuff. Tools like Webpack became really popular because not only did we need to transpile things down to old school JavaScript, we needed to do it in a way that minified the code, because now our applications were full-on applications and they were big. Sass and less made CSS more manageable as well. We needed our stuff to look good, and CSS was not handling it. We needed variables. We needed a few other things, and even that was kind of tough for people to wrap their heads around, and so we had all these component libraries coming up. So Material UI is one. Shad-CN is pretty popular at the moment. And on top of this, the web platform itself has been improving and getting better over time. So things like the shadow DOM and web components are now a part of the web platform, which is really cool. But it's complicated. Like, all of this is complicated. And if you look at this, if you follow the story, there's a pattern that we can see. And it's not just a web development pattern. This is not just a front-end development problem. This is a human thing. When we have problems, we add more stuff, we add more solutions, and those solutions introduce new problems, and then we solve them, and then there's another problem. And that's how we ended up with this crazy stack of front-end tools. So what if we did the opposite? What if we thought about things from first principles and just honed in on what we needed instead of having to build on top of what we've got? How much of the stack is actually technical debt, and how much of it is something that we actually need? So, hello everybody, my name is Sheena. These are my emojis. I've been coding for a long time. I've been coding since I was a teenager. Mostly I've worked for a lot of different startups, and I spent the last 5+ years working in software development education, basically taking people with potential and turning them into people with careers, and that was quite successful. So I was doing that in a nonprofit in South Africa. I'm a nerd about education. I like taking the science of how brains work and turning that into engineered experiences to help people learn different things. So it's pretty fun. I'm quite involved in the Python community overall. So I organize conferences sometimes. So PyCon Africa is happening in my hometown, and I'm the chair this year, which I'm excited and terrified about. I'm also part of the PSF's Education and Outreach Workgroup, which is a mouthful. I really like education. Have I mentioned that? So I founded a thing called the Guild of Educators, which is for people who enjoy teaching code or do it for a living or want to get into it. So if you want to join, you can join and nerd out about education with us. And I have a company called Prelude that does technical training, so mostly focused on advanced Django stuff and also soft skills. So that's who I am. Let's get back to the code. So the Web 2.0 architecture looks kind of like this. This is vastly simplified, but you tend to have a front-end full-on application running in browsers, and they talk via APIs to a back-end application. And like, that's cool. Here's a more concrete example. So this is an application that I was running with a team. So I had a team of devs, and we had this thing. So on the back, we had Django. We needed some APIs, so Django REST framework. We needed to secure those, so Guardian was good for that. That's like nice object-level permission stuff. Then we had some JSON APIs consumed by a React front end. We needed some state management, so Redux was there. We needed side effect management, so that's Saga. And we needed it to look reasonably good. And so we were using Material UI as a component library. So this is a lot. It's a lot of different things. And it's hard to actually be productive on a stack like that because you need a lot of different skills. So front-end development is complicated. So I just want to show you this link. Let me just F11. Oh, it's already open, but who's seen this before? Like, if you want to be a front-end engineer, it's no longer just something that you can do. It's proper engineering. You need to learn all of this stuff. And that's a lot. Full-stack developers exist. They're not a myth, but they need a lot of different skills. And the challenge with having all of these skills and working in the full stack is that you're actually kind of a lot slower than you would like to be, because you keep needing to change contexts. You keep needing to think about, okay, how does the back end consider this problem? How does the front end consider this problem? You're working with different code bases. You're switching between different ways of viewing the world. Deployment and versioning is complicated. The front end expects some APIs to have a certain shape. The back end needs to expose APIs of that shape. And now you need to keep these things in sync in a specific way. And maybe you can solve that with even more tools. So it's complicated. So it's complicated for the people on the ground doing the work. It's complicated for us developers. But it's also pretty bad for organizations that write code. So organizations that do web development typically don't hire a lot of full-stack developers because full-stack developers are either expensive or considered to be magic unicorns that don't exist. And so what typically happens is you have a front-end team and a back-end team, or at the very least a front-end developer and a back-end developer, and they work together. But you can't just take like half a front-end dev and half a back-end dev and call it a full-stack dev, because it's the same problem as like you can't take 9 ladies and then get them to make a baby in 1 month. It doesn't fly because there's complexities. You need to get people to communicate. There are handover issues. There's back and forth that needs to happen. So there's a tax on this complexity. And so you need more tools, perhaps. GraphQL can help. The front-end people can decide what APIs they want on the fly, but that introduces more problems. Maybe the thing that you need to do to handle all the extra handoffs and task juggling is like project management tools and project management capacity. Maybe you need to hire an extra person just to handle that. So it's complicated and it's suboptimal in many ways. Now, since I love education, I've worked with a lot of junior developers and gotten them to a point where they can get a job, and it's actually really hard because people don't hire junior developers for web development as much as they used to. Web development used to be the gateway to get into software development. Like when I was in university, I used to code for money, as one does, and like I was doing web dev, and it was fine. Now that's no longer an option for a lot of people. Like organizations typically don't hire juniors. Typically, they'll only hire intermediate devs and upwards. And that sucks because juniors are people too, and they struggle to get the experience they need to be useful. But it also sucks for the future because there's going to be a talent vacuum. And who's going to fill that vacuum? I'm not even talking about LLMs here and the effect that they're having on the job market. Like, the stuff's going to get weird, and there aren't going to be enough skilled people around to deal with it. So we like Python. we know that simple is better than complex. And I'd like to say that there's a simpler way to do web development. So the core of a web front end is HTML. It's all about like, HTML tells you what's on the screen. You just need to get it to behave in a certain way. You need it to update in a certain way. You need it to look a certain way. But it's all about HTML. That is the core. So can we make it good enough? What would it take to make it good enough? So what do we need? We need to be able to fetch information from the backend whenever we want to. And sometimes we need the backend to be able to push information to the front end. This is also a thing. We need to be able to render and re-render parts of the screen based on that information. And sometimes we need state management. So like maybe we have a menu, we click on it, it opens and closes. We need that kind of thing, and sometimes we need more complicated state management than that. But often we don't need as much as we'd think. So I want to talk to you about two simple tools that give us all of this in a really elegant way. So the one is HTMX. Who's heard of HTMX? All right. Who's used HTMX? All right, cool. It's cool, hey? And then the other one is AlpineJS. So HTMX, for those of you who haven't used it before, it is a JavaScript. Oh, I have a thing going on. It is a JavaScript library. It is tiny. It is simple. And what's cool about that is it works on old devices and slow networks. It's really small. It's basically how it works is it adds a few simple attributes to HTML that give you control over a bunch of different modern front-end interactive things that you might want to do. It allows you to fetch HTML partials from the back end and then render them on the screen where you need them to be. So you're conditionally re-rendering parts of the screen. So this is the hello world of HTMX. It's pretty simple. We have a button, and when you click on the button, we send a post to this endpoint, and then there's a response. That response has some HTML in it, and we're taking this whole button and we're swapping it out. That's what this line does. We're swapping out the whole button with the HTML that gets returned. So this is a pretty simple little hello world, but hello worlds tend to be that way. You can really tie HTMX actions onto any kind of front-end event, and you can use any kind of request. So here we're sending a post, you can use a get, you can use a put, whatever, and you can decide on where you want your partials to go. You can update multiple things at the same time if you need to, and you can update them in different ways. So sometimes you want to replace an element, sometimes you want to put a thing inside another thing, or put it at the top, or put it at the bottom. So there's quite a lot of control there. Now, I want to show you an example of how you would do something similar with React. So this does something comparable. It's not exactly the same, but it's comparable. This is the React way of doing things. Notice how long the code is and how much it looks like code instead of configuration. It's complicated. There's a lot that can go wrong here, and there are some like weird things happening as well. So here we've got a div, right? Let me make it bigger. Like the main thing I want you to see here is the complexity rather than the actual code. But if you're familiar with React, then you should be familiar with kind of what's happening here. So we've got a div. And if there is a message, we display the message. And if there isn't a message, we display this button, and then it's just got a handler. Like when you click, you call this handler. Where's the message? The message is in the state, which is set up here. Then the click handler is this thing over here, and what that does is it fetches stuff from the endpoint that we need to hit, and if there is a response and it's okay, then we set this thing again, and then we re-render this because now the state is like it's complicated. And imagine like if you're writing a serious application, there's like a lot of stuff like this. It gets to be quite a lot of code just for a simple thing. So that's yeah, that's the difference between HTMX and React. Of course, React can do a lot that HTMX can't do, like state management, for example. So this is the hello world of AlpineJS. So AlpineJS is similar to HTMX in a lot of ways, in that it's a tiny little library. It's very, very simple. It gives HTML superpowers by giving it a few extra attributes that do different things, and you can do modern web stuff with it. So this hello world, basically what it does is it says we're going to define a variable called open, and open is defined within the context of this div. Open is false to begin with. You can set open to true by clicking on this button, and when open is true, you display this content. So you can use it for menus that open and close, and tabs that change, and you can do cool iteration things with it as well. But it's nice and simple to look at, and it's pretty, like if you just look at it, it tends to make a lot of sense off the bat. So it's simple. And the question is, like, what is the simplicity worth? So there are web front-end wars underway at all points in time. JavaScript fatigue is a thing. When I first heard about AlpineJS and HTMX, I was like, oh, it's another one of those. People are saying that they are revolutionizing things, but it's just going to be another one of those. But the simplicity is worth a lot. So here's that project I was talking about. So I was running a team that was doing this, and I had a bunch of people who were trying to be productive, and we were grinding and we were moving forward. It was working, but we had a bunch of team members who were just drowning, especially the junior team members. They were really struggling. And so if we wanted a junior team member to be productive, we needed to craft their tasks just so that they would touch certain parts of the stack and not other parts of the stack, and need to keep track of what everybody knew about so that we would set them up for success. That was a workload. And then even then, a lot of people needed like a lot of support to be productive. It got to a point where I was like, I think I'm going to have to fire some people. And that made me sad, and that made them sad, but it was very hard to get people to be productive. Then I heard about HTMX from somebody that I respect quite a lot. So I was at DjangoCon US, and there was a talk by a guy named Chris May, and he was talking about how HTMX made a React front end like way more efficient. And I was like, damn, I need that. The application we were building was for people in Africa. It was for students from under-resourced backgrounds who wanted to learn some stuff. And so they had slow devices, terrible networks, and we were running this React app. And it worked, but it was slow. And so I was like, we need something that's better for them. Let me try this HTMX thing. So I experimented. I took this, and I sat by myself, and I hacked at it for a while, and I was like, what are the weirdest, hardest things we're doing with our React app? Can I do it in HTMX? The answer was yes. The answer was, it's not hard. So I got my team to try it out. I got the most junior of junior people on my team to try it out, and they were successful. Whoops. And so the project ended up looking like this. We re-architected things completely. On the back end, we just had Django. And we did server-side rendering of static files, and those static files used AlpineJS and HTMX tags, and it worked. So this was a great simplification on the stack. And it was fantastic, because personally, my developer experience was improved. I could move way, way faster. The same team members were adding more value. Everyone was a full-stack developer, including our juniors. Like, that's unheard of. And on top of that, our code quality was way better. So I showed you that little example of like the React code versus the HTMX code. For an entire code base, for a learning platform, like we had a lot of React code, and it shrunk down significantly. So it was tiny, it was easy to reason about, and so that meant that there were fewer bugs and a faster dev team. It also meant that testing and versioning became much easier, and our complicated pipeline for the front-end build went away, and deployment was simpler. It was just better. And of course, our clients had a better time as well. Our end users could use the application at a reasonable pace. Earlier on, I mentioned organizations that do web dev. They have a whole lot of different problems and different solutions to those problems. A lot of these problems go away. Who's heard of Conway's Law? Yeah? Okay. So Conway's Law says that if you have an organization of a specific shape, then the systems that you produce tend to be in the same kind of shape. And if the shape of your organization is dictated by your tools, then like that can work. But what if, instead of being constrained by the tools that you're using, you just shape your organization according to the problems that you're trying to solve? That's kind of cool. But wait, there's more. So again, I love junior devs. I love finding ways to get people into this career. So tools like HTMX and AlpineJS, lower barrier to entry for web devs. It gives organizations larger, cheaper talent pools that they can choose from. And that's fantastic because it means that there's less risk in hiring staff to try out different things, and there's less risk in hiring junior staff because they can be productive soon. One of the reasons organizations don't hire junior staff members is because they'll hire them, they'll pour effort into training them, and then by the time they get useful, they leave, they go somewhere else and they get a bigger paycheck. But if they're productive sooner, then that's great. It's great for everyone, and it gives people an opportunity to grow. So hopefully I've given you, those of you who haven't really heard about HTMX yet, hopefully I've given you an an excuse to at least try it out. Or I know that there are some people here who are trying to convince their teams that HTMX is a worthwhile thing. I hope I've given you some words to use in your context. But just in case you want some more, I'll share the slides with you. There are some links. Here is some HTMX inspiration. There's a bunch of blog posts and videos and things that you can look at. I made a Django starter project that shows you how to use HTMX with WebSockets to do cool real-time stuff and like how to test it and things like that. So you can grab that if you want to, and like come and talk to me. I train people in this. I will answer whatever questions you have. Yeah, so that's that, and yeah, that's it. Scan this, you'll get these slides, and that's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the talk. We have some questions online, and if you want to submit more questions, go to Slido. So we can start from the first one. I've heard modern front-end developers are so used to SPA and APIs, and they can't wrap their head around HTMX approach and server-side rendering. What's your experience as an educator? Can we teach simplicity to existing front-end devs?
I think we can, yeah, because I've done it. So it is possible, but it does require people to have an open mind. I think one of the cruxes of getting people to get into these tools is getting them to see the worth, that it is in fact worthwhile, because front-end web development has been evolving and moving in a specific direction for a while, and now we're like, let's go that way, let's take a hard right. And a lot of people see that and they're like, ugh, you know, like it's outside of their comfort zone. It takes like learning that front-end stack is a lot of sunk cost as well. And throwing that away and trying something new, it's a scary move. So I think the main thing to do really is to look at them as humans who are being asked to make a big change and get them to just try it. Yeah.
Thank you. So next question that was also upvoted. In your opinion, what are projects where HTMX will not be the best choice, if any?
So I'm not sure, because I haven't really seen a ceiling to it. So one of the links over here within this thing is a talk that is just like an epic HTMX demo that shows you, like, it's like the mother of all demos for HTMX. It shows you a little bit of what it's capable of doing, and you can build some like very, very complicated front ends from that. So the fact that you can use HTMX to update multiple pieces of the page at the same time is fantastic. I think where HTMX falls short is on state management, because the way you would do state management with HTMX is like if you wanted to open a menu, you'd like send a request to the back end, and then the response would be like the open menu, which is inefficient. So it does fall short with that stuff. So if you've got like really heavy front-end state management stuff going on, and a lot of interactions around that, then maybe something else would make more sense. But a lot of the time, what you want to do is update the front end based on the back end. Yeah.
Thank you. Kind of related, could it be complex to have everything in the HTML? For example, adding Tailwind.
Yeah. So I think that is one like pretty valid argument against these tools, is that now your HTML code has a lot going on, and it's cool because of locality of behavior. But if somebody's new to the code base, you have like all this like X data and HX what, and then you have your long Tailwind classes, and it can become something that's a bit weird to look at. You can get used to it, but it can get to a point where you do need to put extra effort into organizing your code. And every time you introduce a new tool, you introduce new problems, and there are solutions to these problems. So a really simple one from Django land is a thing called Django template partials. That's a really nice way just to like split up your code into nice reusable partial chunks in a way that you don't get like template spaghetti. And then the other thing is that with Tailwind, you can create your own utility classes. So you don't always need these like super long classes. So the approach that I take with Tailwind is I'll have my own utility classes like primary button, secondary button, and all of those. And then I'll apply those as I need to in my HTML. So it's like clear and easy to reason about and easy to read, and you can see what things are for. And then I'll use other like normal Tailwind classes to handle the layout a bit. So it'll be like, cool, I'll add some extra padding over here. I'll put this in a grid. These should be in columns. So you have like your components in your code, and then you have the layout in the HTML. Like that's the approach I like. It simplifies things quite a lot.
Thank you. So next one is how to convince companies they can solve their problems with HTMX. Most are looking for React front-end devs.
Yeah. I think the story that I told here is something that I tell a lot of people, and I think that it works. Just showing people that, like, cool, if you do this, then you don't need all of these complicated structures, and you are able to hire different kinds of people, and you can structure your team in different ways. I think those are arguments that get people to pay attention, but the main thing, I think, is get people to try. Just give it a serious try. Yeah, like spend a weekend, spend like 2 days playing with it and be like, okay, cool, this does what I need, or not. Yeah.
Thank you. So here there are another couple about when you cannot use it in a project, but I think we already mentioned that. So there is one about Django Ninja. So have you used Django Ninja instead of DRF?
I haven't, but keep going.
And did it also help to reduce complexity or the contrary?
So I think that DRF does a lot of incredible things. It does have a learning curve. So there is complexity there because now you're thinking about serializers and all sorts of stuff. One of the really cool things about Django is its complexity, actually. The fact that it has so many batteries included is very, very helpful. And DRF kind of sits in the same in the same bucket for me. So when you look at very opinionated web frameworks, then it's useful to think about where those opinions came from and are they worth learning from. So I was introduced to Python via Django. Like my first ever Python experience was a Django experience. And I look back at that time very fondly because even though there was quite a learning curve, like I was learning about how like really giants of our field construct web frameworks and what they think is important in the web. And so those lessons have come with me. Django itself is a great teacher. DRF is also a great teacher. It plugs into the Django models really well, so that compatibility is super cool. I think if you want to like make a quick and nasty thing, then like honestly, I haven't used Django Ninja enough to have a strong opinion on it. But my feeling is that it's more about being lightweight and quick. It's not necessarily about building the kind of large-scale consistency that DRF aims for. Yeah. Oh, and I also want to mention something else, the question about when HTMX is not appropriate. There is another talk by a guy named Chris May. I might have it in there, I don't remember right now, but he talks from DjangoCon US last year, and watch his talks about HTMX. He's really, really good at making it clear and making the trade-offs clear. Yeah. He talks about like when should you use HTMX versus other frameworks.
Thank you. We still have a couple of minutes, so there are a lot of questions. So, opinion on Flask versus Django with HTMX?
So I think Flask and Django solve different problems. Like you can use them to solve the same problem. You can like build an admin interface with Flask and things like that. You can get an ORM to play nicely with Flask. But the main thing to think about is like, what is your end goal and where is your application going? So Django has a lot of batteries included. It's not a small framework. It has that learning curve. But are those batteries useful in your life? Or do you want to make decisions about the different batteries that you use? Like, do you need to decide which ORM to use? Do you need an ORM? Do you need a template layer? What are you going to use there? Do you need an admin interface? What are you going to use there? I think one of the things that I really love about Django is that it allows you to build a scalable team. Like, if you're running a Django project and you need more people and you hire a Django developer, they're familiar with all the standard batteries. So they can just jump in and be productive really quickly. They can ramp up really fast. if you're running a Flask project and you've made a lot of different decisions about what you want to use and how you want to use them, suddenly, like if you hire someone else, someone new, they're going to need to spend more time ramping up to familiarize themselves with what you're doing. So there's that trade-off. And like you can do really big, awesome things with Flask. It's just, and maybe you need to make different decisions about what you include in your application, and that's completely fine. But it's worth being aware of that trade-off. It's really worth thinking about the people who are writing the code and the people who are going to join you as you write the code. The other thing is that, like, Django is inappropriate for some things. If you are going, like, if you are building small things, if you're doing microservices, like, probably don't use Django for that. It might not be the best bet. So yeah, it depends on your use case. And then for all of these things, HTMX, like you don't even need you can use a file server and you can run HTMX code on your file. You can serve HTMX files or HTMX, you know what I mean. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So we are at time. Thank you for your talk. It was very interesting. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.